A video for ICT 355-555 Systems Analysis and Design. The Group Business Case Project Interval 4 Assessment. This assessment document, which is linked under the group project page for each project interval, is what your group and your instructor will utilize to assess the completion of the project interval. These assessment documents outline all deliverables you are being asked to create, start, and complete for each project interval. All of the deliverables you are being asked to complete are described in detail in the video, The Business Case. Use this as a guide when you are working on your project. Interval 4 is for system design. This is the third critical step in the software development lifecycle. This phase is where the project goal is to design a system that is effective, which means it meets the business requirements and also the business needs. It's reliable, which means it can handle input errors, processing errors, hardware failures, human mistakes, and it's nearly available all the time. It's maintainable, which means it's flexible, scalable, and easily modified. This phase essentially provides everything an IT developer would need to build the system.
To do a deeper dive, let's use the funnel image of this project. We are now currently in this detailed level. We are getting narrower and narrower on what we are defining. So we are in the systems design phase. So we're actually developing the requirements now for how to build out what you had analyzed with the business into the system. So remember in the last phase for systems analysis, we had you analyze the business from what does the business look like? What does the users look like? What do the business process models look like? And what does the data needs from the business look like? We're now asking you to get into actual requirements and developing the requirements for the system. For this particular interval, we are asking you only to develop those requirements for Sprint 1. Remember, we are using Agile-like techniques to be able to develop the CRM system in chunks instead of having you develop every requirement possibly needed to develop the CRM solution in total. We're asking you to develop only requirements for your Sprint 1 item in this project interval. So to break our funnel down into even more detail, so when we get into Sprint 1 and Sprint 2, you're going to be asked to do a couple different things. Within Sprint 1, you're going to be asked to develop system-level requirements. System-level requirements are requirements for the system overall. So the adaptability of the system, the reliability of the system, the supportability, the availability, does it need to be available 24/7, how much downtime is there of the system, etc. You're also going to be asked to do user profile requirements. User profile requirements outline the profiles that are needed for the user groups within the system and what level of access they should have for each object within the system. You'll also be doing system data mapping. System data mapping is essentially taking the information that you gathered during analysis and identifying the particular pieces of data that are needed within the system and how they map to one another. It's not getting into the details yet of the types of fields they are. It's more identifying the data that's needed within the system and how each of those pieces of data need to talk to one another within the system to provide that mapping of the data within the system overall to your IT developer. This system level information essentially will be developed when you're in Sprint 1. However, when you do get into Sprint 2 development of requirements, you may need to add to these requirements for system, user profile, or system data mapping. For each of the sprints, though, you will be doing object level requirements. However, your group has decided to split up what you are developing in each sprint, you will need to have the following. You will have a user interface or wireframe, which is the picture of what the object should look like. So whether it's a screen, a report, a dashboard, an email template, or whatever it is that the business needs, it will be that screenshot that the developer will use to create the object within the system. You will also define the functional requirements, which go with the user interface and wireframes. What these do is tells the developer how the user interface or wireframe should function. Should there be certain things that happen when you press a button? Should there be certain things when you enter certain values into a field? Are there error messages? There are many different functions that have to happen on an object, which is why you have supporting functional requirements to tell the developer how that user interface or wireframe should function. There's also the detailed data requirements. This is different than the data mapping. The data mapping, again, is from a CRM perspective overall of all of the data elements and how they map to one another and how they need to interact with one another. The data requirements are at a detailed level that support this user interface wireframe. So whatever data you put on these user interface or wireframes, you need to define what's the type of field. Is it a lookup field, a pick list? Is it a text field? Is it a numerical field? Is it a field that's required to be entered? Who can update it? And any acceptable values that can be entered or selected in that field. So if it's a pick list field, what are the values that need to be in that drop-down field? Those are all data requirements and elements that the developer needs to have along with the user interface wireframe. The developer also needs to know specific auditing requirements. These are things such as, is there fields on this object level that need to have specific auditing towards them? Remember up here we talked about access level for users. This was more at an object level holistically. These auditing requirements are details specific to the user interface wireframe. Are there certain fields that need to have specific auditing or security around them on this particular user interface wireframe that you're defining? So for each user interface wireframe that you are developing, you should have functional requirements, data requirements, and auditing requirements that support that user interface wireframe. And you could have many of these in each one of your sprints that you're developing. So coming back up to our funnel view, when we're developing this section, we are now down in the details. Again, you are still acting as a systems analyst in this systems design phase. However, what you are doing is developing all of the requirements that are needed to then hand it off to an IT developer. We are having you play the IT developer within your group as well, because you'll be doing the development of this within your Salesforce CRM. However, typically, the systems analyst and who is developing the requirements is different than the IT developer, which is the reason that the details are needed for the system level requirements at the level you are being asked to produce them. So as you're defining these requirements, make sure that when you are developing them, they are good enough to hand off to an IT developer to develop whatever it is that you are planning on developing in your Sprint 1. This same thing applies to Sprint 2, because whatever you are doing for developing your system level requirements and also your object level requirements in Sprint 1, you will be doing the same thing for Sprint 2. So let's take a look at the project assessment for Project Interval 4. So within this Project Interval 4, you will be asked to complete the systems design section for system data mapping, system requirements, and those user profile requirements that we just went through, along with your requirements for your Sprint 1. So whatever objects you are defining within your Sprint 1, you should have a user interface or wireframe, and then data requirements, functional requirements, and auditing requirements that support those user interface wireframes that you are building out. As you start getting familiar with Salesforce, there are additional resources that are available to you. There's existing page layouts, the data schema builder, and there's also profile requirements already started within the Salesforce CRM system. So if you do wish to utilize some of that information that is currently already in there and tweak it for whatever you are building within your project, your business case, those resources are available to you as well within the Salesforce CRM. You should also start making progress towards the development in the Salesforce CRM for the items you are developing and designing in Sprint 1. That will be due in the next interval. As a reminder, also view your feedback from the last interval assessment and make sure that you are making updates to your project and getting any revisions submitted for past project intervals and also for your final project. There are resources available to you to help you with this project interval. There's the project overview video, which provides you details about the project. There's textbook readings that have been assigned for the module which align to this project interval. There's the example of the completed business case that you can utilize as a guide. There's also a video of the business case that details information about each of the sections of the business case you are being asked to complete. And you can always contact your instructor. What you can expect after the interval is you will receive feedback on your interval submissions from your instructor. You will receive a pass or fail grade. If you receive a fail grade and you've made an effort for the interval, you will have the opportunity to revise
which is continuous improvement, and resubmit to your instructor. It is your group's responsibility to communicate to your instructor if you are going to submit revisions for reassessment. If you receive a pass grade, your group should be utilizing the feedback received to continually improve your business case in preparation for the final project submission in Project Interval 7.